Why don't you just talk about the what's happening with both Biden and Trump and what you really call the scandal of classification overall? Who gets caught and who doesn't?
Right, Amy, I think it's really important just at the beginning to remember that the reason some of the laws and regulations are in place that govern President Biden's conduct regarding classified documents, or then Vice President Biden's or President Trump's, is because of the scandals in the Nixon administration, where there was this attempt, and in some cases actual action, taken to destroy documents. So it's not just about classified documents. It's also that the president is the ultimate public servant, according to the law, and everything they do as president has to be documented. We, the people, may not have a right to know everything they did immediately, but ultimately they are doing a job that is funded by the public and is part of a democratic process. So it's not just classified documents that we're talking about, it's all of the records. Donald Trump was notorious as president for ripping up all kinds of documents and for completely rejecting many of the norms that are supposed to govern the executive branch in terms of document retention. And what happened was that when he left office, he still was thinking, okay, I might be able to overturn this election. And we all know how that unfolded. And he's also being investigated for his actions around trying to reverse the election results, as well as the events of January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. So Trump is notorious for trying to destroy documents. He had been warned repeatedly about this practice by people close to him who were lawyers, and he seemed not to care much about it. And according to Trump, there was a standing order at the White House when he was president that simply by thinking about declassifying documents, they became declassified. And the specificity of it was that anytime Trump would take documents to his personal residence at the White House, by default, they became unclassified. So fast forward to the waning days of his administration, right up actually to the helicopter taking off the lawn, hours before President Biden was sworn into office. You had boxes of documents that were shipped from Washington to Trump's resort home in Palm Beach, Florida at Mar-a-Lago. And the National Archives, which is an apolitical entity within the government that is in charge of securing all of these documents, making sure that the historical record is preserved, making sure that classification guidelines are followed along with the relevant security agencies, started to say to Trump's people, there are documents missing. And what Trump did from the very beginning was lie, block access, stymie the efforts of the National Archive to retain some of these documents. And ultimately, this went on for about a year. And then in early 2022, Donald Trump's lawyers tell him, you really have to return this stuff. So they give what we understand to be roughly half of the documents we know Trump to have taken. It's possible he took many, many more of them. This probe is still going on. But what's relevant to this is that once it became clear that Donald Trump was holding documents and that some of them were secret, top secret, even above top secret, top secret SCI, where you had compartmentalized information, code word secret documents. Once Trump's people returned that initial batch to the National Archive, and investigators start looking at what exact documents Trump had taken, what we understand is that they felt that there was a very serious risk that Trump had taken very sensitive documents. So they then try to compel Trump to hand more of these documents over. And the allegation is that Trump lied, or his team lied to investigators, lied to the government, refused to fully comply with a subpoena. And ultimately, Attorney General Merrick Garland signs off on an extraordinary search warrant that was executed last summer in August, where FBI agents conducted a raid at Mar-a-Lago and then seized hundreds of boxes, dozens of boxes more, containing 150 plus documents from Trump. And in the affidavit that the FBI filed in support of that search warrant, they said that they believed that they were going to find evidence of crimes, including some provisions under the Espionage Act that have to do with the handling of classified information. This is all extraordinarily relevant to what would then happen with President Biden, because as the Democrats have done since before Trump was elected president, they have portrayed Trump as a stooge for Vladimir Putin, as in the pay of Russia, as doing the bidding of foreign powers. And this document story fed into that narrative. And there was this feeding frenzy, particularly when we learned that Merrick Garland had authorized this search warrant to be conducted at Trump's property. And so they really went to town on this. In fact, Joe Biden appears on 60 Minutes just this past September and is asked about this. And he says, how could someone be so irresponsible? And that his first reaction when he saw the FBI photos of documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago was, what sources and methods have been compromised? Well, fast forward to November 2nd. Joe Biden's lawyers are shutting down an office that had been set up just blocks from the U.S. Capitol for Biden in the period between his vice presidency and his presidency at the University of Penn. It was called the Penn Biden Center. And the managing director of the Penn Biden Center was Tony Blinken, who, of course, now is a very, very senior official in the Biden administration. And one of the lawyers just comes across in a locked closet. And mind you, all of this is based on what the Biden people have said. So we have to take it with a grain of salt because people in power mislead and they lie and all of these things. But taking them at their word, the narrative is that they discovered a manila envelope that was marked personal. And inside of this envelope was a document containing classification markings. So they continue to search and they find other documents that appear to be classified. The Biden people then at the White House are informed about this, and Biden doesn't widely share this information with people in his administration. Instead, they gather together an informal war council, and among the people in this war council to try to determine how to handle this. Mind you, they know immediately how incendiary this is. They have gone to town on Donald Trump over his mishandling of classified information, and the midterm elections are just days away. So the Biden people gather an informal war council with Bob Bauer, who is a very famous Democratic elite power lawyer, and Bauer's wife, Anita Dunn. Anita Dunn, who is a senior advisor to Biden, was an official in the Obama White House, also was called by Harvey Weinstein when the New York Times was about to break the story of his heinous crimes against women. And she was like a PR guru brought in by Harvey Weinstein. She's then in the room trying to figure out how the Biden people are going to respond to this. And so what they ultimately decide is, let's self-report this to the Justice Department and to the archives, and let's just try to do the opposite of what Trump has done. Let's just be completely transparent with them in the hopes that this will all go away. And what we now know is that the Biden plan was not to say a word about this to the public until there could be a clearing of them by the Justice Department. Well, then the nightmare starts to happen when more documents are discovered in late December, not in a locked closet in a think tank blocks from the Capitol, but literally on the floor of Joe Biden's garage next to his prized Corvette. They did not, for 68 days, the American public was not told that the president of the United States had discovered documents that were not supposed to be in his possession once he left office, and that, in fact, that had been a prime attack vector that they had opened up against Donald Trump. Biden only acknowledged the first batch of documents, not the garage documents, when CBS News broke the news that there had been an initial probe launched by Merrick Garland involving the U.S. attorney out of Chicago. So you have, on the one hand, the scandal of the documents themselves, which really deserves heavy, heavy scrutiny on both Biden and Trump. But then you also have the fact that the Biden people clearly were not planning on informing the American public about this, and they definitely delayed it until after the midterm elections, and probably would have delayed it to this very day, thinking that they could just get cleared internally by the Justice Department.